What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Parent Network Podcast. Listen, if my voice seems lower, that's because I'm recording and these kids are still asleep. But let me tell you something. I have cracked the code for how to keep them sleep longer. Take them on a hike. Y'all hear me talk about Caleb all the time and the energy that he exudes. But baby, let me tell you, it's Monday, Memorial Day at 8:08 and Heartbreaks AM. And he's still asleep. But let me also tell y'all, he has not moved from the position that I seen him in last night at 11:47 p.m. Now, that is a good thing, but then it can also be a scary thing because I pray that he did not use the bathroom on my love seat. But anyways, it's a win, okay? Because it's a win. And I said, let me take advantage of let me record, okay? Let me record because it's a win. So y'all listen, we're gonna get into some conversation today. It's not really a structured podcast. It's just some things that I've been wanting to talk about. And so we're gonna get into it, okay? As Auntie Tab says, let's get into it. Now, I do want to say that I put a poll out on my social media account concerning like video podcasting and audio podcasting, and it was pretty much consensus of both. And so, for the purposes of this particular podcast, the Parent Network, I am going to be doing both. I'm going to be doing more video. That can only happen though when the kids ain't here, when it's really quiet, and so I have to figure out what that's going to look like. But I do, as I always say, appreciate everyone who listens to the podcast, streams it, downloads it, shares the podcast out with their people. It is truly, truly, truly appreciated. If you have not already listened to the collaborative episode that I did with Janetta Tisley on her podcast platform, the Mama Work It, you need to go to her platform, the Mama Work It podcast, and listen to our episode. I believe it was called Heal So Your Children Don't Have to Deal. We delve into so many different topics in the hour and some change that we were on together, and it was so, so good. One of the things that I know is when we don't take chances, we don't use opportunities to the advantage that God wants us to use them to, then sometimes we can forfeit connections that are supposed to be good connections simply because we're scared, because we're in fear. And so that particular episode, y'all, I saw someone reposted, a girlfriend of mine reposted that Janetta was looking for, moms to just talk about how they're working it, whatever that looks like. And so I encourage you all, if you are a mother and you would love to share your story, you would love to just have a conversation with Janetta on her platform, reach out to her, okay? Like I said, go to her platform, the Mama Work It podcast. Listen to all of her episodes, but reach out to her if you're like, you know what, I want to come out of the shell. I want to come out of just my mom hat, and I want to branch into other things. Reach out to her. You can also reach out to me if you want to be on the Parent Network podcast. I'm going to be having some interviews coming up very shortly. Some this week and then some next month as we are getting into Father's Day. Y'all know, okay? Let me say this. Now, moms, single moms, Father's Day. And I know y'all know this. I know you all know this, but I just want to give a refresher. Father's Day is about the fathers. It's not about the absenteeism of any father. It is about the fathers, okay? So if you are not going to be able to celebrate the father, just leave it alone, okay? We're not making any posts celebrating single motherhood, any of those things. We had Mother's Day last month, or actually this month, okay? We already had it. So we want to make sure, and this is something that I'm burdened for, and I'm not putting this on everyone, but we have to make sure, and I talk about this all the time, that we are healing, okay, as women, when we come out of toxic relationships, broken marriages, um, whatever that looks like, and however you got there. You want to make sure you take the time to evaluate and reflect on how you got to that point and what role you played in that. Because it's not always about the man, and the man did this, and the man did that, and the man did this, and the man did that. It takes two. Okay, it does take two. And sometimes, yes, there may be more pressure from one party than another, but we want to just make sure that we're evaluating our position, reflecting and healing whatever area that we need to heal so that we can grow into better individuals, whether you're a mother or a father. We want to make sure that we're taking the time to grow, because growth is a beautiful thing. And when we can grow as individuals, we can multiply what we know. So I just wanted to say that Father's Day is coming up, and we want to recognize and honor the men, honor the fathers. There are amazing, incredible, present fathers, okay? And I feel like, and I was going to say this last year on a post on TikTok, but I said, no, I'm going to wait, because I want fathers to have their day. Like, I used to see so much just negativity and so little recognition for fathers around Father's Day. And I see that it's changing more. That is good. The power of social media, the power that community can come together and say, no, let's change the trajectory of what this looks like for men, because there are amazing, like I said, present fathers, uncles that are taking positions. It is important that there is a father or a father figure in the home for children, not just for little boys, but for girls as well. It's necessary that there are mothers or mother figures in the home for girls and for boys, because it affects the development of the child in their adolescence, in their young adult years, and into their adult years. I myself have had to heal and continue to heal on the journey of the mother womb and even of the father womb. And it's nothing that can be intentional from our parents sometimes. Sometimes it is just intentional abuse. But then you have to realize, like, why is this intentional abuse coming towards me and for me? It's nothing that you did, especially as a child. And I have to reflect on that even in my parenting. When I'm ready to snap at my kids about something, I have to think critically. Okay, is this something that they can help? Is this something that they know? Did you teach them this? Or are they looking for an answer from you, and you're frustrated, tired, overwhelmed, overstimulated, whatever it is, and you don't want to be bothered? So I say all that to say, let's make sure that Father's Day, we're recognizing the fathers, okay? We're not recognizing ourselves, moms. We done did that. We had our time. Now let's make sure that we're boosting up the esteem of these fathers, because they do a great job. And if you know a father that is amazing, shout him out. Shout him out. I'm going to put um, something on this podcast episode where, if you have a great father that you want to shout out, I want you to put his name in the poll, in the question section that I ask. So that way on the next episode for Father's Day, when it is released, I can shout them out. Y'all, it's so important that we boost the esteem of the men and the fathers. It's so important, because it takes two. It doesn't take one, and it was never created for it to just be one. That's not how God created it. And we're not going to, well, let me not say I am not going to allow the enemy to try to rip from us any longer the leaders and the visionaries of the home, which are the fathers. As mothers and as women, we come to be helpmates. And so when we understand our position and they understand our position, there's a flourishing that happens. Okay. I'm about to get started, y'all, because that thing, because I don't like how things become twisted and perverted. But that's what the enemy does. He perverts things. He doesn't make things. He just perverts it. He takes what already is and changes it to make it to be something that is looking beneficial. But it's not always beneficial, because in the long run, where does it get you? But I say all that to say, let's celebrate our dads next month. So on this episode, make sure that you're shouting out the dads. Make sure you're shouting out the dads, so that way we can shout them out on the episode. Okay, so let's get into what I want to talk about on this episode. Really, when we think about like critical thinking, we think about critical thinking and we think about teaching our children how to critically think. I want us to understand like what that definition of critical thinking is. Because if we never allow our children to critically think, aka give us pushback on certain things, tell us their opinions on certain things, then we're depriving them of opportunities to change how they see things, to change how we see things, because we are not letting them do what they need to do. I told y'all that, I thought I cracked the mom code, but clearly one is up and he has come in to make some noise. And yeah, it's just it. But like I told y'all before, in season 1, this is the Parent Network podcast. And if you're going to hear something, you're going to hear kids, you're going to hear noise. Push past it and listen to what is being said. All right. So, critical thinking. Critical thinking. Today, we're going to get into that when it comes to children. So, what is like just a base definition of critical thinking? It is, and this is the Wikipedia definition, it is the analysis of available facts, evidence, observations, and arguments in order to form a judgment by the application of rational, skeptical, and unbiased evaluation. Now that's a whole lot of stuff. And so let's just simplify what critical thinking is. It's the ability to effectively communicate and use problem solving skills. I had to laugh at that because that was a very intense definition. We don't need all that wordiness. Okay, we want to simplify things as much as possible. Clear and concise is my goal. So effective communication that incorporates problem solving skills. Now, as parents, if we never allow our children to think critically, so that can be thinking outside of the box, thinking outside of the norm, because here's how I see it. In every generation, we have the baby boomers, we've had the millennials, we had oh goodness, we have Gen Y or Gen Z. We have different generations that come into the earth, right? And in each generation, they think differently based off of what is available to them. So I am a millennial. So in my generation, we now have access to so much. It started off, with the invention of the computer. And I believe when that came out, they had IBM, and then they had different softwares where we had those big old bulky computers. And then as generations came along and as years went by, innovation happened to where computers became sleeker. You had the laptops, so on and so forth. And so as people come into the earth, as generations come in and as things shift, some things phase out, some things stay the same. But if we never ask questions like, well, why did this happen? Who said that this was true? Even when we think about theories and things of that nature and philosophies, there had to be someone who thought critically about a situation, did the research to explore further whatever it was that they said is true. We have to, as parents, raise a generation of critical thinkers, of problem solvers. And I just personally believe that this generation, oh Lord, I think they're Gen Z. Is it Gen Z or Gen X? I Y'all know, whoever is between the ages of what was the year? I'm gonna say 2008 to 2018. That's 10 years. So let's just say 2008 up until now. These particular children, teenagers, as they are very different. Okay, we know them as parents. We know they're very different. They will challenge your thoughts, and if you are a millennial and up, so what is the cutoff? I think it's what, 34 and up. Generally, you are not able to challenge your parents in what they said. It was what I say goes. What happens in the house stays in the house. You don't question my authority because I'm the one who pays the bills, and the list goes on. There was a clip on social media that went viral last year, I believe, and I saw it again this year, where the young lady was saying to a panel of adults that when adults and or parents say certain things like, I'm not your little friend, you're not on my level, you don't understand certain things like that type of language, it feels like they're belittling the thought process that the teenagers and the children go through. And when I watched it quite a few times. When I saw it the first time, then I watched it again when it came up again on my feed this year. And I said, that's so true, because it reads off like this hierarchy, superiority mindset. Now, granted, yes, we may have, and here's the key word, may have more wisdom in an area, but our children and the children around us, they also have wisdom in their sphere of influence. And as parents and even educators, aunties, uncles, whomever has access to kids, we cannot belittle what they say. We cannot belittle their knowledge, because there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about the generations being able to come together to learn from one another. And so, if the plan of God was for generations to be able to come together and to learn from one another, then we cannot keep this hierarchy mindset in parenting, or even in education and in family dynamics, and think that what we want them to learn is going to be effective. If part of critical thinking is about effective communication, then that means active listening and active responding. Okay. I have read this book called Why Don't We Listen Better? And it's really basically about active listening and talking. So when you talk, you don't just talk, as we know, just with our voice vocally, but we communicate and we talk with our hands, with our body language, eye movement, head movement, posture, all of those things. But when I listen, the goal of listening is to provide safety, to provide understanding, and to provide clarity. So when we're talking to our children, we want to make sure that our body language is inviting. This is a part of effective communication, y'all. We want to make sure that our body language is inviting. If we come with a standoff, hostile posture, they're not going to feel safe. They're not going to feel seen, and they're not going to feel heard. Now, it's funny because I would say, like, I don't know where my son picked this up from, but that wouldn't be totally correct. But I don't fully know where my oldest son picked this up from. So sometimes he'll call, I'll answer the phone, and he'll go, Mom. And so I'll say, yeah, what's up? Or I'll say, what? Or I'll just look, and he goes, oh, you seem bothered. And I'm like, I haven't even said anything sometimes. I haven't even done anything. But then I have to realize, oh, well, your body language may make him assume this. Now, we know that assumption sometimes does not always produce valid information. And so I have to correct, hey, no, I'm not bothered. Like, what's up? Or I'm in the middle of doing something, but because you're my child, I'm answering the phone. Y'all see how that works, parents? So we have to make sure that either we're doing corrective sometime communication in our effective communications, or we're aware of how we're coming off, because the kids now, they standing on business, as they say, and we want to make sure that they stand on business, but we also want to make sure that we're teaching them compassion. We also want to make sure that we're teaching them how to healthily confront situations and or avoid certain situations that do not exasperate or flare up things that they don't need to be involved in. And so I feel like sometimes when we are even teaching them problem solving skills. So we just talked about some effective communication. Let's move into problem solving skills, the problem solving part of critical thinking. If you are always fixing the problem, okay, now I'm going to talk to my mama bears for a little bit and my papa bears for a little bit, because I can definitely be a mama bear, which, like, I'm going to do it. Don't worry about it. It's going to get done. You know, are we truly allowing for that part of their critical thinking skills to develop if we never allow them to struggle? If we never allow for them to struggle in an area, walk with them through the struggle. Now, I'm not saying just abandon them, be like, figure it out yourself. No, that's not teaching them anything but abandonment and possible rejection coming up. We have to make sure that we are teaching them how to problem solve, thinking critically in that. So, what does problem solving look like? Let's pull up that definition for problem solving, because it's important that we know. All right. So, according to the dictionary, problem solving is the process of finding solutions to difficult or complex issues. I believe, as a parent, this is one of the hardest jobs in parenting, is to allow our kids to problem solve in certain situations, but also to see them going through the process of problem solving when we know how to do it. We have to allow them to do it though, y'all. Otherwise, this skill can be underdeveloped for them in the real world. So that when they leave our home, when they're in, the job field, the entrepreneurial field, whatever field they find themselves in, and this part of their brain has not been turned on, it stifles them. It puts them at a disadvantage. So the next time your kid comes to you with an issue, instead of saying, this is what you should do, open up the dialogue to some leading questions. Okay, well, how did you get to this point? What do you think is the best solution for this outcome? Have you done X, Y, and Z? Using those open-ended questions to bring them into their own solution. And then if they ask you for your opinion, do your best not to make it so matter of fact, like, this is what I would do. You could use different verbiage, like, well, in this case, I'm thinking blah, 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 blah. Or if this happens to me, I would feel, because we don't want to project our feelings onto them, but we want to bring them into conversation, bring out what they may be feeling. So when we're thinking about, problem solving and all of these things, communicating, critical thinking, I want us to make sure that we're thinking about it with our children in mind, about the future, not just where they are at 9 or 10 or 17, but okay, as they're 27, as they're 37, will they be able to look back and reflect on, okay, I went through scenarios with my parents. I talked about these things These are some of the tools that they gave me to be able to come to a healthy decision on my own. Because ultimately, in the game of parenting, we want to raise children that are not just independent, but also interdependent. That's a part of the community factor. They should be able to bounce off ideas from us, but not just take everything that we say as face value. But if we don't provide space for that, if we don't provide dialogue for that, then it can be challenging for them as they get older to not just come to us for the solution and never use that part of their own brain, their own mind. And so I was like, you know what? We should talk more about this, and some ways that critical thinking can be disrupted. And then also some ways that, sometimes you do have to just be mama bear or papa bear and say, no, this is what you're going to do in this situation. So I want to talk more about that, on the podcast in this season and bring in some other parents to dialogue around this topic. What we're going to be doing in the next couple of episodes, like I said, is I'm going to be interviewing some parents, and we're going to really get into some topics about being divorced and parenting and what that looks like, because it's a whole different dynamic, and there's so many other emotions that can be invoked when we have that dynamic. So y'all be on the lookout for those episodes. But for now, we are going to dive into just some more problem solving techniques for our children and even for us as we're learning and navigating how to not just do, but also allow for things to flow in this journey of parenting. So until next time.